Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the World Discord podcast. I am one of your hosts, Joel Ostrow.
Hello, one of your hosts. I'm Brian Endless, your other host, and the world's been just a tad busy this week.
Oh, I didn't think anything happened. I was ready to say, see you next time.
Well, that's because you're going on spring break, so you forget
Oh,
about everything
I'm
else.
already on. This is true. Yeah, kind of an eventful week. Uh, Bombing around again, but this time for keeps, it seems. Whatever the hell that means.
I don't know about for keeps. We can talk about that.
Meaning more than just a couple days.
Yeah,
Um,
I think again is a better word for it.
yeah, yeah. It's
Um,
pretty bad. I know several people with family back there and have gotten uh, the reports are not happy. I can tell you that.
No, I actually find it really interesting. We can go into a bunch of details on this, but we can talk about the Iranian community for a minute. I've
Mhm.
got a number of friends in the now Iranian American community, Iranian diaspora, and some of them have friends at home, and we've seen some reports. And the reports are pretty much all incredibly thankful that the Ayatollah is gone, but not that the U.S. is killing people in order to get rid of him, and that a lot of Iranian civilians are dying. And this is not what Iranians seem to want, even if they're completely against the regime.
And a lot of fear that what's going to replace the Ayatollah will be even more brutal. Really,
Yeah.
almost everyone I've spoken to with family back there is pretty convinced that things are just going to get worse, which is really hard to imagine.
I don't think there's any chance it's going to get better, in no small part because we didn't set it up to do anything vaguely resembling regime change. We just did what we did in Venezuela and kind of decapitated the regime, and now we're going to attack it for a few weeks and then leave the Iranians to pick up the pieces again.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we'll get into it, but I think it's really like everything else going on with this MAGA takeover. I think the story is really short. It's just about theft, and it's maybe 100 people who are taking our money,
Yep.
uh, and they're going to keep taking it.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's all this is. It's not about policy. It's not about Iran.
Yeah.
The White House doesn't give a crap about Iran or the
Yeah.
people of Iran.
Yeah, I mean the new one here. It's not really new because it certainly was going on with Venezuela, but in this particular conflict, the military-industrial complex is the big winner in terms of all the money that they're going to get because we're using so many munitions, and the Israelis are, and then everybody who's making money behind the scenes on this in the Trump administration and otherwise, and just the general billionaires
It's
who
not
always
even
manage to make money.
right. Didn't Kushner get like 3 billion from the Saudis, and I forget who got the money from the Emirates and from Qatar, but it seems clear that that was all bribed to do this so that they can be the ones selling the oil to China.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much the Emirates and Qatar wanted this done in particular because they had to have some feeling they were going to suffer more than the Saudis were from it. The Saudis, on the other hand, are loving this. We're just U.S. and Israel are doing everything the Saudis want done
Yeah,
right now, and they
yeah.
don't have to bloody their hands at all. And maybe they get a little bit of a punch someplace on the arm and a little bit of a nick and a few people killed and injured, but they get to wash their hands of it, which for them is good. Why don't we go into it a little bit because we're
We kind of
dancing
start.
around.
Yeah.
We're dancing around as if everybody has the same level of knowledge that we do. So let's set a few basics.
Yeah, we were
And
heading to the Discord podcast world instead of the World Discord podcast. I mean,
exactly, yeah, that's amazing how that happens. All
yeah,
right, so what's the count right now? I personally like to start every war report with civilian death counts and sometimes military death counts too. And
sure.
as of a few minutes ago, when I checked, it was 1,300 plus Iranians dead, including at least 175 girls at the girls' school that was unfortunate enough to be next to a military base. It is 11 Israelis dead and several thousand injured, and Israelis going to bomb shelters multiple times every day. It is 120 plus dead and thousands injured in Lebanon, where the Israelis have been invading for the past 2 days, and that one's not hitting
20
the news
years
every
since I
place.
count.
Yeah. It is somewhere around 10 dead and 150 injured in the various Gulf states in the region, and it is 6 U.S. soldiers dead and somewhere around 30 or 40 injured.
It's up to
And
6 now? I did not heard that.
it
Oh.
is six, yeah. Yep, it is.
Do we know how, what was it? How did they, what were the circumstances? Do you know?
First four I heard were on a military base that was attacked. I don't know how the
Yeah.
count went up to six,
I know
though.
planes have gone down, have they?
Yeah, so three planes went down, but the pilots were safe. The planes are funny is a terrible word for shooting down planes and potentially killing the pilots. The pilots are luckily alive, but we knew it was friendly fire from the start. It was three
Yeah.
F-18s were shot
Oh, I
down
did hear about
over
that. Yeah.
Kuwait. And
Yeah.
at first we thought it was friendly fire from U.S. Patriot missiles. And now it sounds like it was friendly fire from U.S. planes that we sold to the Kuwaitis. So
Yeah.
one way or another, our stuff is blowing us up. And it caused more monetary damage than anything else so far in the war.
Yeah.
So that's the basic situation in Iran. The Iranian regime has been decapitated to some extent. We took out the top leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was only the second Ayatollah since the 1979 revolution, and he'd been in power for what, 30 years now, something like
The
that.
second supreme leader.
Yeah, and
There's a bunch
10
of
more.
Ayatollahs.
What's that?
There's a
Yes,
bunch of
the Ayatollah in
Yeah.
this case, as opposed to
Second
the
the
bunch.
Ayatollah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then 10 or more senior leaders. But what we knew was, and if you followed Iran, they've been setting this up for the past 6 months since the last
Yeah.
time we attacked. They had dispersed their leadership, and they
Yep.
had over 80 people who were broken into groups of three who were set up to take leadership if other people were killed. And right now we're seeing a group of three leaders, a leading cleric, a leader in the defense ministry, and the, what was it, president of the country have come together and are running the country at the
Yep.
moment. The Revolutionary Guard still largely exists. The military structure was decapitated, but still largely exists. So, no change there, with the possible exception that they might crack down more now. They might see this as an opportunity to crack down more.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And all of that leaves out, of course, and this isn't critical. You were focusing on people dead. Um, the attacks are not limited to Tehran, are not limited to military bases. We and Israel are striking cities all over the country. I
Yep.
know this because the relatives of my friends are located, some in Tehran, but others in, I think I counted four other cities named, and all of them had had missile attacks, bombs dropped by planes. The entire country is basically cut off from communication.
Yep.
Uh, Cell, internet, even VPNs are being shut down.
Yeah.
So people have very difficult, very limited ability to get any information.
And not that we should expect anything else, but the U.S. and Israel are bombing civilian areas on
Yeah.
purpose. Even I just hear the girls' school, and the excuse is, well, it was next to a military base. I'm sorry, but don't we have precision missiles and precision weaponry that can hit basically the head of a dime because we're GPS and satellite bringing it in? When those weapons are off, there's something very suspicious
And
that is going on
you
there.
know, next, it was not on. I thought it was a Revolutionary Guard base, or a building facility. Maybe it was military,
Same
um,
thing.
but it was not on the grounds. It
Right.
was near the
Yep.
grounds, and there was a large and long and thick concrete wall separating the grounds of the school from the grounds
Yep.
of. Now, there wasn't when that facility was built, but shortly after that, the wall was put in, and that was something like 8 or 9 years ago.
Yeah.
Compared satellite images that are available to you and I. So our military, and
Right.
certainly Israel's military, has that image when they were doing their targeting. Now,
Yep.
missiles do, they're not 100% accurate. Yeah, they're precision, but they can miss by a few feet. The guidance can be off. The targeting coordinates can be a little bit
Yep.
off. It happens. Um, but the fact is, um, the disturbing disinformation right after the school was bombed that it was somehow uh, a self-inflicted wound by Iran
Oh
was
yeah.
was so non-credible from the outset.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the misinformation has really been the key here. And you and I have talked about this separately and talked about it on the radio too. We've got so many different pieces of misinformation that are going
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Why did we do this? The original story was regime change. And that just made absolutely no
no,
sense.
yeah,
You look at even the completely failed regime change in Iraq, where we got rid of Saddam Hussein's regime, but then were incapable of replacing him. The Bush administration spent 6+ months in 2003 building up to that and getting the American people to support it and
yeah,
not springing it on us. And
right.
now we get regime change sprung on us, and then we get nuclear weapons sprung on us, even
Yeah,
though as of
TV
yesterday,
saying, "Oh, a nuclear attack was imminent."
exactly. As of yesterday,
1988.
we had not struck the one place that we know that Iran
Correct.
is holding fissile material. It
Correct.
hadn't been hit yet. The nuclear attack is imminent. I just want to repeat this again. I think I've said it on this show before. There was no nuclear attack imminent. This is a story that was made up out of whole cloth by Benjamin Netanyahu in 1992. It's not
88.
even recent.
It goes
Oh,
back to
88? I
Mhm.
didn't think he was in Parliament in '88 yet.
But he was active. He
Ah,
surrendered
okay.
to terrorism.
So, so
And
maybe '92 he first brought it up in Parliament,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he said 6 months to a year until this happened, until Iran gets a nuclear weapon. And Netanyahu and others in Israel and the U.S. from 1992 until now, so 35 years, have been saying it's imminent, it's going to happen, it's 6 months away, we have to do something. It's complete BS. It has no basis in reality.
and all
Uh,
other uh, inspectors, international agencies, um, expert organizations on nuclear proliferation and weapons. The only entities that suggest that Iran was still aspiring to acquire a nuclear weapon
yeah.
were the White House and Netanyahu's
Oh
regime.
yeah.
There was no
And,
one else with any
and when
credibility.
Yeah, when the JCPOA was signed under Obama, it was one of those things that they had stopped any discussion of it in any way, shape, or form. Everything was normalized. And then in the first Trump administration, that's taken away, and that drives Iran back to doing a few of the things that might look like they're possibly long term, far in the future, threatening, but still nothing there. Most Americans, I think, don't realize one of my favorite quotes is from Ayatollah Khomeini, who has consistently,
You like to
until
quote
he
really
died, of
weird
course,
sources, Brian Endless.
he consistently said that nuclear weapons are un-Islamic,
Yep.
that you may not, under Islam, kill massive amounts of civilians. Now, he was doing this to critique Israel and to say that Israel's got nuclear weapons and that this is a terrible crime. But he said that that Iran didn't want nuclear weapons. And hey, Iran didn't get nuclear weapons. Usually,
Correct.
the sign that someone's lying is you find evidence that they're lying. That's usually how it has to work.
Usually pretty good method. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is dizzying is that there've been at least 4 or 5 different justifications coming out uh, of the Trump regime.
Yeah.
Yeah, the United States and Israel to it in the first 48 hours after
Oh
the
yeah.
attack.
Well,
So
we did the nuclear weapons
at
regime
least in
thing.
Iraq, it took a couple months before we started blaming them for 9/11,
Yeah.
right?
The third one I like, and we've continued on this one. We had to destroy. The third reason why we did this was we had to destroy Iran's navy. Iran doesn't particularly have much of a navy, although
So
yesterday we decided to take out an Iranian naval ship in the Indian Ocean that had been in joint exercises with the Indian and Sri Lankan navies. And when we took it out, there were sailors left alive in the water, and against all international law, and doing this is honestly a war crime. We didn't rescue the
right.
sailors of the ship that we had sunk, and the Sri Lankans had to come in a few hours later. It's like when you sink an enemy ship, those people become non-combatants, and you have a responsibility, unless you're in harm's way. We weren't, there were no other ships there.
Correct.
You have a responsibility to rescue them. People don't
And
think about
we
it.
have a responsibility to rescue them, and we should want to rescue them, because when our ships get hit and Americans are stranded
Yeah.
in the ocean, we want them to be rescued and treated according to the rules of international law and the
Yeah.
Geneva Conventions.
And,
The
and
United
this
States
doesn't.
is a rogue state right now. We're
Yeah.
basically a terrorist regime.
And
Uh,
what people in this country, in our country, don't realize is when we do this to the Iranians, it's not just that the Iranians are going to treat us that way. It's that everyone else in the world sees that we are a rogue state, that we don't give a damn about international law, and
Correct.
they're going to let our soldiers get hurt. They're going to hurt our civilians in ways that they might not otherwise. Yeah, the terrible states do this kind of thing, but we're one of the terrible states here.
Now, I have not confirmed this myself, but I did. I saw it on the internet, so it must be true. Actually, it was a credible source that we all. It wasn't just that we sank that Iranian naval ship; we sank it with a submarine. We used
Right.
submarine
Yes, we did.
fire to sink it, and I'm led to understand that that is the first ship sunk by fire from a submarine since the Second World War,
It is in fact correct. Yeah.
anywhere on the planet by anybody.
Saw that one and confirmed that one. That is true.
So that's fun.
Yes. So we're hitting some military.
Like,
So
why
what are the other?
Lanka? Like, what does that have to do with the Straits of Hormuz?
Well, one of the interesting things was the last time we attacked Iran was the first time that a B-2 bomber was ever used in combat. And it seems like Donald Trump wants these firsts. He actually very directly, we now know this after the fact, 6 months ago, in the last war with Iran, he very directly said, "Oh, we've never used these B-2 bombers. Let's use them."
Use them.
And we flew them from the central United States around the world to
Yeah.
attack Iran because Donald Trump wanted to use his
the
toys.
Mhm.
Just freaking insane. So, what are the other excuses that are out there? Let's see. We regime change. We're missing a couple. We're up to the third or fourth or fifth excuse now. What excuses are we missing?
Well, part of it was, because they're still supporting Hamas and
Ah,
Hezbollah.
yes. Yeah. No, that was definitely an important one.
Which is, but Gaza is important to this, because if we succeed in changing the regime in Iran, presumably that would lead to an easier ability to finally and completely choke off Hamas, and then Jared and Donald Jr. and the others can do the real estate deals in Gaza.
Time out.
No, that's
I
their thinking, not mine.
Right. That's the U.S.'s thinking.
Not the
Now
U.S. thinking. That's the fascist regime's thinking.
Oh, okay, very good. Yes, that's the leaders of the fascist regime. I accept that. It's not Israel's thinking, though. And this is something we haven't talked about here yet, is to me, this is Bibi Netanyahu about a week and a half ago, February 22nd, I think it was, being in the White House and basically telling Trump that this is going down and convincing Trump to join in on the effort. Oh, I remember. That was the fourth excuse. The fourth excuse was we knew that Israel was going to do this and that Iran would attack U.S. targets afterwards.
Yeah.
So it was a defensive measure because Israel was going to attack Iran that we had to attack Iran too. Yeah. We keep trying to say that it's defensive when there's no possibility that it is. But we got Bibi Netanyahu here. What does Netanyahu want? It is multi. Yeah, number one, he wants to stay out of prison. To stay out of prison, he has to have a perpetual war.
And he has to remain prime minister.
Well, with a perpetual war, the Israelis don't unelect people during wartime. No matter how much they don't like the prime minister, they keep the party in power during war. So Gaza turned into Lebanon, turned into Syria, turned into Iran. Now what's also happening behind the scenes is massive increases in the settlements, in the Israeli settlements in the West Bank. And that's all pleasing to the ultra-conservative parties that support Netanyahu. They love the expansion.
When do we stop calling those settlements and start calling it an invasion?
It is an invasion. Well, it's not actually an invasion. Legally, it's occupied territory, which is just and bad. They invaded it in 1967. Yeah. They've been occupying it since 1967. Yeah. And one of the many laws of war that Israel breaks on a daily basis is you may not settle inside of occupied territories, period. You cannot create facts on the ground by having settlements. There's
yeah,
absolutely no legitimate reason why you can do that. But we see Israeli settlers going in with weapons and being supported by the Israeli military and pushing out Palestinians. And to see that, you've got some really good news sources in the United States. That's
right,
not in the headlines at all that that's happening.
right,
So,
right.
what has Netanyahu got? He's
But
got a
it's
big,
escalating.
yeah,
It has been happening steadily,
yeah,
at least since the October 7th attacks, but long before that. But the escalation, the acceleration, has been dramatic over the
yeah.
last. Really, before this strikes on Iran happened, like over the last couple months, at least I've been aware of dramatically increased numbers
Yeah,
of in-
and big ass distraction in attacking Iran, and that distraction is costing Israelis their lives. And I've got a number of friends in Israel, and on the civilian side, in a lot of ways, I feel just as bad for them. They're going through multiple times every day air raid sirens and having to hide.
yeah,
And my friends on social media in Israel are just constantly, "Hey, I was actually able to be outside for 2 hours today." And this is what their own government is doing to the people inside of Israel. Now, some of the Israeli people support this because they still think Iran is dangerous. But why is Iran dangerous? Because Israel's attacking them. That's really what it's coming down to now, is they're pushing it. And now they expanding the war into Lebanon again and supposedly going after what's left of Hezbollah. Who knows how much of that has any ring of truth? And
right.
I haven't heard anything about Gaza in the past couple of weeks. Have you? And I'm pretty
No,
sure that's bad news for Palestinians in Gaza.
no,
So
for
all,
sure.
all
What?
around, this helps the Israeli regime. And now on the Israeli side, Trump may be bumbling into this. On the Israeli side, on the Israeli side, this is a plot,
Oh, it
and
is a
I have,
conscious thought. Yeah,
yeah, absolutely planned out, no question whatsoever. On the
absolutely.
U.S. side, this looks like it wasn't planned out at all. And at best, we followed the Israelis, and we probably didn't even know what they were going to do.
Do want to talk about one unintended consequence of this. Uh,
Yes.
Price of a barrel of oil now of crude has gone over $90 for the first time. I think it's in a decade, close to
Yep.
a decade. What this means is, I mean, Russia has been violating international sanctions, selling oil around, mostly to China, but in Africa and places in South America,
Yep.
elsewhere, clandestinely. This increase in price dramatically increases revenue to Russia at a time when they were facing catastrophic financial shortages.
Yeah.
So this props up their economy quite a bit,
Yep.
which is a help to Putin. He has been notably silent, um, which is some have been surprised by, given that Iran has been an enthusiastic supporter of Russia's
Yeah.
war in
Oh, they
Ukraine.
only sent them about 80,000 drones over the past couple of years. That's
Trump
nothing.
profited from that. Russia
Oh yeah,
purchased them.
100%.
Iran
Yeah.
had a monetary interest, let's be clear. Um, but Russia also needed those shaheds, and Iran was an ally. My first reaction to Putin's sort of shrug, and there's absolutely zero chance that the Kremlin was unaware that this was going to happen.
Right.
You know that Trump and Hegseth informed their counterparts, or
Yep.
possibly Jared and Witkoff, who are the primary financial beneficiaries of all this
Right.
chaos,
Oh,
informed.
the Kremlin probably knew before the Gang of Eight in Congress knew.
Yeah, and they have basically remained silent. Uh, Part of my thought was, and I do still believe this, uh, that the United States of America is a much more important and potentially beneficial ally to the Kremlin than Iran ever would be.
Yeah.
Uh, and the more they can get the United States at least to not oppose it, the more they can pursue their objectives in Ukraine and in the former Soviet space, but also disrupt the European Union and Western Europe in
Yeah.
particular.
No,
Uh,
absolutely.
but if you add into this also our kidnapping of Maduro and seizing of Venezuela's political allegiances,
Yep.
and the stranglehold we are imposing on Cuba with our announced intent of regime change there, the Kremlin loses three pretty important allies, all of which, well, two of them major petroleum exporters, which helped them to illegally move their oil to sell their own,
Right.
but also just important allies generally. And really, there's been not a peep from Russia either about Venezuela or about Cuba, which must enrage those.
You just made me realize I haven't heard about any Venezuelan oil ships being seized in the last couple weeks. I wonder if there's something going on behind the scenes there. I don't have any knowledge about this, but that could be a deal that we cut with Russia too, to let some more oil go in or out of places that way. Who knows what's going on there?
Are more likely those with and oil interests connected to the Trump regime have made their deals, cut their deals
Yep.
with the puppet government in Venezuela now, the puppet
Yep.
of the United States government. And so they are they are, Trump had said something about, what was it, $50 billion of investments or whatever he
Yep.
was telling the big companies to do, and they were kind of shrugging.
Yep. So let's talk. I got two more things at least I want to talk about. One is, what we can guess is going to happen inside of Iran, make educated guesses, and the second is what you started with, and the who's benefiting, who's profiting,
Yeah.
and follow the money off of all these things. In terms of inside Iran, what we know reasonably well is the likelihood of positive regime change for the Iranian people is insanely low. They had absolutely no civil society. The Supreme Council, the Iranian Guard, the Revolutionary Guard has done a great job of making sure that there is no opposing civil society. It simply doesn't exist. They had tens of thousands of students who were uprising, but those
Women.
students had absolutely no support and were large.
Sustained protests around the country by large numbers of women on the streets,
Yep.
something that should put our feeble protest movement to shame.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
Very
But
large and sustained and nationwide. It happened.
at the same time, my concern in that is, and I know the internal politics of Egypt a little better than I know Iran. We saw this in Egypt during the Arab Spring, and in Egypt, all it was a telling sign that the military was changing and that a different military regime was going to take control, and that the military just decided to let the protesters run for a while and
Correct.
let them burn themselves out because they know the protesters have no chance of organizing. You even
Yeah.
go back to the 1979 revolution, that was supposed to be a democratic revolution. There were a bunch of democratic
Oh
groups.
yeah, in Iran, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The
And
problem was it was leaderless, and
yeah. And in the
Khomeini,
end, the Ayatollah Khomeini comes back from exile,
yeah,
and he's the one who sets up a fundamentalist
yeah,
Islamic republic, as
yeah,
opposed to all the democratic groups. So, the very little chance democracy, very little chance a group that benefits the people, every chance that some faction of the current government or the Revolutionary Guard ends up on top. I don't think we have any way of knowing who that's going to be or what that's going to be right now, unless
right.
you have some guess I don't know about.
No, but no matter what it is important to say that even the liberal progressive opposition in Iran um, is no fan of the United States
Yeah.
and no supporter of a large U.S. or UK involvement,
Oh, yeah.
given the histories that we have there of frankly supporting regimes that massacred Iranian
Yeah.
people.
It's actually kind of sad, funny, ironic. One of the first people that popped up on American TV was Reza Pahlavi, who's the son of
Yeah,
the last of Shah Reza Pahlavi.
yeah,
Pahlavi's now 65 years old, the son of the Shah, and he says, "Well, I'll be happy to come back into the
yeah.
country, and I will govern for the people." It's like, yeah, complete and utter BS. Your father was the dictator who was supported by the U.S., and
Yeah.
most Iranians still hate the U.S. because of that, because
And
of your
all
father.
Iranians hate the Pahlavis, so I don't
Yeah,
think anyone would be tolerant of that
no,
in Iran, which probably makes that the most likely outcome that uh, Trump and his cronies will try and do,
yeah.
uh, because he can make all sorts of promises to Trump, and it seems from his appearances on television that he knows how to butter him up.
Right.
Those.
They'd have to complete, we would have to completely overthrow the
Yeah.
Iranian military to do that. And I don't think there's the slightest chance we're going to put boots on the ground because that would just be a war that would
Well,
bog down for another
that's
decade.
the other concern, though, because there have been whispers that the boots on the ground that we're going to put are the people that we use to do our dirty work in Iraq and Syria, the Peshmerga, the
Yeah.
Kurds,
Hmm.
uh, who still dream of a Kurdistan, an independent
Yeah.
Kurdistan. Much of the Kurdish population is on Iraqi soil, the border, Iranian soil, the borders Iraq and Syria.
And Turkey.
Dream of that part of that territory as being theirs.
Yep.
I can totally see uh, the Trump Rubio Hegseth triumvirate making all sorts of promises to the Kurds to let them go in and do their dirty work on the ground, and then we just abandon them like we did before.
Even then, at best, we arm the Kurds and they set up some type of semi autonomous state in the Northwest.
They're
There's
not
no
going to
way.
topple the Iranian military.
They're not going to topple the Iranian
Yeah.
military. It's just, even if we act as their air force, it's just not going to happen. And oh, by the way, then NATO has to decide whose side they're going to come in, or Turkey has to decide whose side they're going to come in on, because
Right.
Turkey has a long term conflict with the Kurds. And then NATO has to decide what they're going to do. And that would just make things worse. So I shouldn't go so far as to say we're not going to put boots on the ground, because things are so screwed up that if we want to screw it up more, we could put boots on the
You can
ground.
put boots on the ground. Yeah.
That just might
Remember,
happen.
war is peace. So
Yeah. I will say, though, that I would suggest there's going to be a giant winner if we put boots on the ground, and that's Benjamin Netanyahu.
oh, for sure.
I think he just
Yeah.
clearly wins.
Yeah.
And by the way, the military industrial complex and the oil companies and oil big shots making money. Why don't we go to money and let's talk about what we know about following the money here? You want to start or you want me to?
Why don't you start it off and then I'll add.
Okay. So the place I've been following, there's a lot of different stuff. We can go back to Kushner and other things, and we should. But the place I have been following that is new and that's coming up with this is the military industrial complex, old and new at the same time. The stats that we now have are we have largely emptied our stockpile of Tomahawk missiles. We've used about 75% of the Tomahawk missiles. Those are the attack missiles that we have. And we are largely emptying the world supply of Patriot missiles. Those are the anti-missile batteries. And a lot of the world supply is in friendly countries in the Middle East that are busy shooting down Iranian missiles and to some extent drones. You usually wouldn't use Patriots against drones.
Not Israel, though. Is to be clear, it's our Gulf, where we have Gulf bases, the Saudis
Yep.
and Kuwait and the Emirates and elsewhere have the Patriots, which is
Yep.
obviously
Although I have heard we've been using our Mediterranean fleet to protect Israel, and there's going to be some in there too. So the anti-missile stuff coming out of the Med fleet.
yeah, those aren't Patriots, but yeah,
No,
yeah.
correct, yeah.
But the
But
draining
anti-missiles.
should not be happy news for Ukraine, of
What,
course.
what, what does this mean? This does not mean that the United States is now defenseless and can't go on offense. This simply means that we have to put through another bill. What was it, $50 billion today
Yeah,
that they put down as the
it's gonna be
new
a lot more than
request?
that.
Yep, the new request for military costs. As of this morning, the cost of the war was $5 billion a day so far.
A
$5
day.
billion with the B dollars a day. And
Yeah.
it's just going to keep going up from there. And the military supply companies, the defense contractors are going to be gigantic
Oh yeah.
winners here as they have to pump out all this stuff as they end up pumping out all of these materials over again with nice, juicy, easy contracts from the U.S. government.
But it should be pointed out that if that data, and I'm a little skeptical that we've used 70% of our Tomahawk missile inventory. If that were the case, that'd be probably the dumbest thing we could do, because it's not like you can replace that stuff in a day. It takes something like a year and a half to make a Patriot missile battery,
Oh, yeah.
and it takes about a year to make a full inventory of missiles, interceptors
Yep.
for a Patriot missile battery.
Yep. And
You're right. The military industrial complex definitely stands to profit. Ukraine stands to lose quite a bit
Yeah.
because although the United States was not directly supplying weapons to Ukraine anymore. The deal was the Europeans could buy our weapons and
100%.
then transfer them to Ukraine.
Yeah. Well, and
Uh,
we were transferring
now
the
we
lower
got it.
tech and higher tech stuff. Ukraine's largely out of your artillery shells because Europe ran out of artillery shells. But the missiles were a significant issue too, as Europe started transferring those. So stockpiles were
Yeah,
running low all over the globe. And now the military industrial complex gets to restock everybody probably over the next 5 years.
but Ukraine is kind of happy on a different scale because right now Israel's using the Iron Dome and its fighter jets with missiles to destroy Shahed drones that cost about $1,500 tops.
Yep.
So they're using $10,000 to $100,000 weapons to shoot down $1,000 weapons or maybe weapons that are a few $100s.
Yep.
Train, however, has drone technology
Yep.
that costs about $50 each that
Oh,
are
yeah.
effective at destroying the Shaheds. Very few Shaheds make it through Ukraine's uh, own developed drone defense system.
Yep.
And so they have been saying, hey, guys, so we can help.
They could be
Um,
a net exporter. I will say, I just want to do a total side note here
the price
because,
of those are going to go way up if they're selling to the U.S.
oh, yeah. Um, most of my life, I've been a behind the scenes military geek and I follow the different military technology and stuff. We had one really interesting new technological innovation. Israel, for the first time ever, used a anti-missile laser. And it's the
Yeah, I heard
first
about
time in human history they shot
it.
down missiles with a laser beam. We have entered the 25th century or
Yeah,
whatever the future might be. And it's a dangerous thing, but it mostly defensive. It makes it a little bit safer out there. And we'll see, where that's at and if people are perfecting it. One of the problems with perfecting your defense, of course, is then you're more willing to go on offense
correct.
and you don't have to worry about getting hit at home. But
But
yeah,
it's pretty
something,
limited because it can't be cloudy or raining, and
yes.
even apparently it can't be direct sunlight. And then I thought I read something about high winds, which doesn't make any sense at all to
Yeah,
me why,
not sure.
but I did read something about high
Yeah,
winds.
yeah. So that was interesting too. And
Apparently,
drones were the new technology the last 3 years. We might be moving into a laser age now too.
yeah.
I don't think we're done with drones yet. I think it's going to be here for a long time.
The other thing I wanted to talk about was something that I spoke about on air with Joan earlier in the week and with Patty yesterday, Patty Vasquez on WCPT. Uh, Driving it home, 5 to 7 p.m. There, I think I got the whole plug in. You're welcome.
Excellent.
Is My head explodes every time I hear the word distraction.
Yeah.
This is not a
I,
distraction.
I still use it, by the way, in no small part because I like to see your head explode, but that's okay.
Yeah. This is not a distraction from anything. Tariffs are not a distraction from anything. The ICE actions are not a distraction from anything. The detention centers are not blowing up. The boats in the Caribbean or Pacific are not a distraction. The Maduro thing's not a distraction. It's all part of the Project 2025 MAGA fascist plan to enrich about 100 people at mind numbing levels at all of the rest of our expense. It's all about enrichment of this clan that supports this regime.
So a couple minor differences of opinion here. First, it's probably 200 or 300 people, just to be fair. The numbers have actually gone up over the past 10 years in terms of how many huge billionaires, ultra billionaires are benefiting. I still.
From Trump, though.
Trump's not the important one here. The Trump's network is
That's
there, but it's really still the Koch brothers' brother that in that central network.
But not all of the multi-billionaires are in on this.
They're not, but they're all profiting from it.
Well, that's
So
true.
they make their profits behind the scenes, whether the
I'm
market
talking
goes
about
up
the
or
ones
down.
influencing the policy to line their own
Oh yeah,
pockets.
the personal ones that are doing it, but Project 2025 was for all of them, not just for a
Correct.
few. We see a
Correct.
few in Trump's orbit that are probably getting tons of insider information and lots of things that are going on there. I'm going to disagree a little bit because to me, a part of the Project 2025 plan was to throw so many things up that there are distractions in the air. And when I say distractions, I mean distracting the news and distracting the people from following the money story.
Well, yeah,
So
and that's the Epstein stuff is a distraction. Everyone's
100%. Yeah.
all this stuff. Oh, they're distracting from the Epstein files. And frankly, the midterm elections are a distraction too, because they have no.
Yeah, I think. See, I think the midterm elections, though, are the other significant issue, along with the who benefits. There, that same group is going to benefit massively if we have unfair elections, and if those elections keep the people in power who are currently in power.
They'll
So
benefit also.
part of that money involves elections.
They'll benefit also from arresting and putting in all those detention centers they're building anyone who plans to vote against the MAGA candidate.
Absolutely. How many we got detention centers? What do we have? I think it's up to 200,000 beds planned, and there are some places along the lines of 3 or 4,000
Yeah.
actually dangerous people without paperwork in the country who've actually committed dangerous criminal offenses.
Oh yeah,
It's
these things
incredible.
they're for people who do stupid podcasts about fascism.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah. By the
Yeah.
way, I heard a knocking on your door, so see ya.
Yeah. The guys in the dark suits.
That's why
No, it doesn't work that way anymore. They just barge in.
it's true.
They break the door down and come and get you.
It is true. You'll notice I still have that axe on the wall. So
Yeah, good luck with that against them. Yeah.
that's for the Rwandans, not for anybody.
But there are places where that is happening.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has. It makes for a very scary world because, as we've said in previous episodes, it's not that it's legal. It's not that the courts are eventually going to find it legal. It's that you go to jail for a couple of years and everybody's lives get disrupted, and there's a massive amount of fear put into the system that it could happen, and people start self-governing and self-limiting as they
Well,
do.
and no one's paying attention. The reason I say that relying on the midterm elections to save us is insane. They're openly telling us they're going to deploy military or maybe move some of these ICE goons to polling places around the
Yep.
country.
So I am still a little more hopeful than you there, in that I think the turnout could be so massive that that might not matter. But I
A
concede
lot
fully
more.
that is a massive, enormous concern. And that is absolutely going to happen at some level. The question is, do the American people push back enough? I'd like to make a note to the American people here that we strongly encourage you to push back and to
Yeah.
get your butts out to the polls, because it's still important on that side. And if we don't go to the polls because we're afraid, they win.
But we also need a much more coordinated and organized day to day resistance and insistence on preventing that outcome from happening in November,
Yeah,
um, and really preventing mass bloodshed at the protests that are going to start happening as the weather turns. There's going to be a lot warmer and sunnier Saturdays, so the No
yeah,
Kings can happen every month again. I'm sorry about
yeah.
my sarcasm, but it's not enough. Um,
No, and one of the things that goes into that too is this is again where the distractions come in, because the same people who want to fight against the elections and the same people who are going to get out in the streets and fight against the elections are now incensed about Iran. And they're focusing their energy on Iran. And, I find myself, I mentioned starting about a month and a half, 2 months ago, I fully admit I have Trump derangement syndrome, not because he's driving me insane, but because I keep following the bouncing ball that he keeps throwing out. And I'm just as guilty of anyone. I get on social media, and now I've been talking about Iran for the last 3 or 4 days. And you
but
and I are on here talking about it.
that's okay. But what we need to do on all of these, this bouncing ball and the next bouncing ball and the last one, is always focus on who is reaping the monetary benefit in the Trump regime.
Yeah.
Robert Weiss has been saying this for a decade or more, right? Every commentary by every Democrat, by anyone opposed to fascism, needs to be exposing and naming the people and the
Yeah.
entities that are making the billions of dollars
Absolutely.
and pointing out that it is coming from us.
And I first started consciously thinking about this shortly after the Reagan administration, and I've been looking at it all the way through college and grad school. It's
Yep.
one of those I ask every class. I teach every class, starting with my low level intro 100 level classes and going all the way up. There is a 2-word question you must always ask: who benefits? You
Yep.
must keep that question in mind anytime you're looking at any political issue. That's going to be your pathway to the answer, is who benefits. And it is incredibly clear right now, and we lose track of that story, and we need to keep the focus on that story.
Was it Richard Fenno or was it Lipset who said the discipline of political science is about whom,
Yep.
who's taking what from whom, and who's doing what to
Yeah,
whom.
and that was like the 50s or 60s, I think.
Yes,
And it's been
yes,
around
yes,
since earlier than that.
yeah, yeah.
So, anything else we need to talk about on Iran? By the way, I would like to give my standard disclaimer. We are currently in the fog of war, and we have absolutely no idea what's been happening and what's going to happen next. So, we
That
could all
doesn't
get.
distinguish this episode from any other episode of the world.
That's true. No, but personally, I reserve the right, based on new information, to say the exact opposite of everything we said today, because we might not have the information that we need. We're making these comments based on the information that we have, and you have to put the information out there, but it's constantly changing.
So basically, what you're saying is come together, move apart. It's really all the same thing.
No, no, no,
No.
no. We'll do another episode on that again. Haven't had a good come together episode in a while. Although I will say, and I do not endorse, but James Tallarico winning in the Texas Senate primary race, he is the ultimate come together politician. He's somebody who really can cross lines.
What's the name of the director at CBS now? Why can't I think of her name?
Not sure. I know
Well,
you're
he's
talking
the
about.
reason he's the nominee,
Yeah.
right? For banning the interview that Colbert had done.
Oh yeah. No, she put him over the top. Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, we've now gone completely off track. You want to say goodbye, Joel?
Goodbye, Joel.
Excellent. That was very good. We'll pick up more with Iran if we need to. Expect our next episode to be back on fascism, unless more bouncing balls get thrown up in the air, in which case we'll go to more discord. Thank you all very much for listening. Thank you, David, for producing and for getting that nasty phone call out in the middle. And we will hopefully talk to you all soon. Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.